Welcome, my name is Lylanthia and I'm going to be unboxing this Planeswalker Origins Deck Builders Toolkit. This is the most recent edition of the Deck Builders Toolkit line, released with Planeswalker Origins, as you can see right there on the label. The Deck Builders Toolkits are a combination of some semi-randomized cards and usually 4 booster packs and some basic lands, and a couple of rules references to be able to jump right in and start playing Magic at a little bit higher of a level than just the pre-constructed decks. So let's go ahead and get the shrink wrap off. And then first thing I always notice with these is there's a little protective sleeve kind of detailing what's inside the product. And then you're left with this nice looking box. Got the Planeswalker logo there. The Magic logo on top. Looks like we've got some artwork of, what is that? Is that Gideon? Looks like Gideon to me. And it's a great way to store your Magic cards. So we're going to go ahead and crack this open. And we see the little divider here because it is designed to hold more cards than it comes with. And we've got the Magic Planeswalker Origins Deck Builders Toolkit Starter Guide, which has some fancy artwork of Gideon, and I just keep dropping stuff all over the place. Man, I am not very good at unboxing. But it explains how to go about building decks, sorting your cards, finding your key cards, exploring your options, etc., etc. These are kind of a cool tip for new players. They explain a couple of deck archetypes that you might be able to build. There's a whole host of options here from the start. Then I'm going to go ahead and move this off the screen. We've also got a rules reference card. So those are pretty cool. They can fit right in your binder, and it folds out to explain to you parts of turn, the way that you start playing a game, the phases, and of course how to win. And then explains how casting spells works, which is a pretty important part of the game. And then we're taking a look here at the other pieces of the product. We've got the semi-randomized packs. And then we've got some more semi-random packs. And then it came with 4 booster packs. So the first thing that kind of bugs me about this is that we've got our Origins pack, which is to be expected, because that's the set, obviously. We've got Fate Reforged and Dragons of Takir, the last 2 release sets in Standard. And then we've got a Journey into Nyx pack, which feels kind of strange that it's not a Cons of Drakir pack. I suspect that it may be because Journey into Nyx booster packs didn't really sell very well. But we're going to open up the Journey into Nyx pack first. And as I go, I'm going to be sorting the cards by color, so we can kind of lay them out and see what kind of decks we'd have the availability to build once we're done here. So to start things off, we've got an Oakheart Dryads. It's pretty cool. It's a Constellation card, which is a mechanic from the Journey into Nyx set. Feast in his dreams. Destroy target enchanted creature or enchantment creature. Hubris, which returns a creature and all auras attached to their owner's hand. Got Satyr Hoplite, which is a nice little aggressive creature. This Mastiff, which embodies White's tapping down mechanic. Pin to the Earth, which is in a recent long line of blue enchantments designed to stop up your opponent's creatures. Renowned Weaver, who is a 1/1 that can be sacrificed to put another creature into play, which is kind of neat. Flurry of Horns is a token generator, also pretty neat. It is kind of in line with Red's, getting multiple creatures out of a token card or token generating card line that's been recent as well. Thassa's Devour, which is in that Constellation line as well. Constellation is a mechanic where something happens whenever you play an enchantment or when it comes into play. We've got Gluttonous Cyclops, which is a guy that's big, who gets even bigger when you activate his monstrous. Vistara Tower Archer, It's a nice little aggressive creature. Has both hexproof and reach, and a 2/1 for 2, which is pretty good value. Got Squealing Leeches. It's a good uncommon. Power and toughness equal to the number of swamps you control. Fits right in as a finisher in a black deck. Brain Maggot, who is a very popular black creature in Standard. So when it enters the battlefield, you get to take a card from your opponent's hand, and it stays exiled until Brain Maggot is removed from the game. We've got Scourge of Fleets, which is a big, huge blue finishing creature. When it enters the battlefield, return each creature your opponent controls with toughness X or less to your hand, where X is the number of islands you control. Of course, a basic land. And then one of the lore pieces cards with an advertisement on the other side. The lore piece cards are pretty cool. This one talks about Johnny Goldmane a little bit. He came to Theros in search of Elspeth. When the gods of Theros turn their backs on Elspeth, Ajani and the Leonid of Oreskos take her in, and Ajani agrees to help her on her journey to defeat Xenagos. So a little bit of the storyline there. It's kind of a cool flavor piece for the Magic cards. Overall, this isn't a very valuable pack, but it's definitely got some good cards to help us start out with some beginning deck building. I'm going to go ahead and open the Fate Reforged pack next, since it's the next most recent set. We'll start out with a Sultai Emissary, and then he has the Manifest ability. When he's a 1/1 for 2 mana, when he dies, manifest the top card of your library. So no matter what it is, it becomes a 2/2 creature, and then at any time you can pay its mana cost to turn it face up. You have Jeskai Runemark, which is a blue enchantment that gives +2/+2, and then it has the multicolor synergy. If you have a red or a white permanent, it gains flying. Sandblast is a white removal spell. It's 5 damage target attacking or blocking creature. Got Jeskai Sage, which is a prowess guy. Civic Host, which is a 2/6 for 5 mana that mills each player when it comes into play. We've got an Archers of Kesari, which is a defender and reach gentleman, and they are basically served as a defensive creature for destroying your opponent's big flyers. Fierce Invocation, which manifests the top card of your library and puts 2/1/1 counters on it, has the potential of creating a pretty big creature. Feral Crushok is a vanilla creature, same with Great Horn Crushok. Bathe in Dragonfire, deals 4 damage to a creature for 3 mana. Good piece of removal to put into your red deck. Hero's Blade is an equipment that gives +3/+2. Whenever a legendary creature enters the battlefield area you control, you may attach it for free, or it equips for 4. So if you're playing a lot of legendary creatures, this could end up proving to be decent value. It gives defense as well. With the new Planeswalkers from Planeswalker Origins, it could give you a little bit of breathing room to keep the Planeswalker alive while you're transforming it. Lightform is a pretty cool card. When it enters the battlefield, it becomes an aura attaching itself to a creature, and then you manifest the top card of your library, and then it gives flying and lifelink. So for 2 mana, it's basically a flying lifelink 2/2. Or for 3 mana, my apologies. Merciless Executioner is pretty great as well. He's a throwback to the old Fleshbag Marauder, except he has Warrior as a creature type, which is a sub-theme in the Cons block. And then we have a Silmanger the Drifting Death, who is a flying hexproof 3/7. Great control card. Whenever a dragon you control attacks creatures defending players controls gets -1/-1 until end of turn, which can be a great way to stop those armies of small creatures. We've got Tranquil Cove. One of each, or a multicolor land comes instead of a basic land in Fate Reforged. And so we got the blue-white one. That's pretty neat. And then, of course, a Spirit Token, which has an advertisement from Ultra Pro on the back. So moving on to the Dragon Sister Cure pack. Hopefully we'll get something good out of this one. So we get, first off, a black creature. Then when it dies, you can return another creature from your graveyard to your hand. It's a good way to keep card advantage going. Impact Tremors. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it does 1 damage to each opponent. There's actually a combo deck around that that is kind of a lower tier standard deck that can steal some games. It's pretty solid in my opinion. A Student of Ojutai. When he comes to the battlefield, or whenever you cast on a creature spell, you gain 2 life. Got Deerguard Nemesis, who's a generic Megamorpher. Sheltered Aerie makes a land produce 2 mana of any one color to your mana pool instead of what it would normally do. Defeat, which destroys a creature with power 2 or less. We have Glint, which is a blue spell designed to save a creature, giving it +0/+3 and hexproof. You can cast that in response to your opponent playing something. Artful Maneuver, which has Rebound, which is a mechanic found in, looks like, if I remember it, Rise of the Eldrazi, as well as in Dragons of Trakir. Rebound, once you cast the spell, it goes back onto the stack at the beginning of the next turn. And Revealing Wind, which looks like it's a fog effect. For combat damage that we dealt this turn, you can look at all face-down creatures that are attacking and blocking. Vandalize, for 5 mana, choose one or both, destroy target artifact, or destroy target land. Choosing from multiple modes on a card is also kind of a theme in the Trakir block, and so it's neat to see that on the common. CB on Sight, card I've played a couple times in Draft. Look at the top 2 cards of your library, put one in your hand, the other on the bottom of your library, and then it casts itself again with Rebound. Graceblade Artisan gets +2/+2 for each aura attached to it. That's pretty solid, especially if you're playing the black-white aura deck that the little deck ideas paper showed. We have Bloodchin Rager, which whenever it attacks, each warrior you control can't be blocked this turn except by 2 or more creatures. It's a mechanic that's now called Menace. And then it looks like we got Radiant Purge as the rare. Exile target multicolored creature or multicolored enchantment. It's an interesting bit of removal. I think it'd be more apt to be put in a sideboard card. It does exile Siege right now, which is a very common card in Standard right now. We got a Plains, and then we got another one of these advertisement cards. So far, nothing super valuable in these packs. Let's hope the Origins pack changes that. So to start off, we've got Yoked Ox, which actually started out in the Theros block. That's a 0/4 for 1. A decent way to stall out the game with your control deck. Catacomb Slug, which is a vanilla creature. We've got Demolish, which is like Vandalize, except you only do 1. We have Elvish Visionary, which is probably my favorite draft card in M15, as it gets you a creature and it gets you a body. Might of the Masses is, or I'm sorry, it gets you a creature and you draw a card. Might of the Masses, target creature gets +1/+1 for each creature you control as an instant. It's a great way to push some extra damage through. Bonding Construct is an interesting card. It's a 2/1 for 1, colorless, but it can't attack by itself. So it fits along with the aggro strategies in that it has a 2/1, which is powerful for a 1-drop, but it does have a drawback instead of a bonus like, say, Dryad Militant. Lightning Javelin, which is a 4-mana spell, does 3 damage to target creature player, scry 1. Now, I feel like scry is a really powerful mechanic in red, which might make that go into one of the decks I end up building. Shambling Ghoul enters the battlefield tapped. It's a 2/3 for 2 mana. We see that happen a lot in black, where creatures will have power or toughness above the normal range, but they enter the battlefield tapped, so they can't be used to block as a drawback. We have Separatist Void Mage that enters the battlefield and may return target creature to its owner's hand for 4 mana for a 2/2. Now, we don't usually see that particular ability bouncing an opponent's creature on a 4-mana cost creature. Usually it's much more expensive, although we did see it in a 2/2 for 3 mana in Ether Adept. Now we have Vine Snare, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn by creatures with power 4 or less. So it stops up your opponent's creatures, assuming they're all small, and then if you've got 1 or 2 big creatures, it can maybe mean the difference between the game. So now onto the uncommons. We've got Tormented Thoughts. As an additional cost to cast it, sack a creature. Target player discards a number of cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power. Now at 3 mana, that means that you'd be casting it on turn 3 ideally, which means that you'd be maybe getting 2 cards, which makes it a mind rot. There's always a chance for it to come out more powerful, though. I think it's a card that'd be worth testing. Hydra Lash, which reads, attacking creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn, draw a card. And I think that card has a place in Standard against the aggressive decks, just because it, 1, stops an attack, and then 2, replaces itself, which is a very important thing for a card to have access to. Revenant. It's a flying for 4 colorless and a black. Its power and toughness are equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. And that has the ability to get pretty big pretty fast, and then the flying means it's a great way to close out a game. Then we have Evolutionary Leap. Sacrifice a creature, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card, put that card into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So Evolutionary Leap does some really interesting things. It's very similar to a card called Survival of the Fittest, which used to be very disruptive to the legacy scene. Evolutionary Leap gives you the ability to basically say, I'm done with this creature, it's not powerful enough for this game state, let's try and get into another one. Or it can be done in response to blocking, to go find another creature to replace the one that would be dying anyway. then we've got a Swamp, no foil in this pack, so these packs overall were kind of a bust. Zombie token. But we do have a great pool of cards here to begin building a deck with. We're going to go ahead and start taking a look at these packs as well. Evolving Wilds usually goes into casual level decks and some beginning like standard decks. It's a great way to find the lands you need when you need them, and can be a replacement that, albeit may not be as good, but it definitely can take the place of some of the more powerful lands. We get another Merciless Executioner. That's good. We get a Silminger Sorcerer. It's a flash flying exploit. Wow. So for colorless and 2 blue, 2/1, flash flying exploit. When it exploits a creature, counter target creature spell. So what this would synergize well with is a creature that has a leaves play or leaves the battlefield effect. So if you have a creature that does something when it leaves play, you can go ahead and sacrifice that creature to get the benefit from it, and then have Silminger Sorcerer counter a creature as well, netting you a effective 2-for-1 trade. So we've got Youthful Scholar. It's a 4-drop 2/2 when it dies. Draw 2 cards. In fact, that may very well be what I was just talking about. As your Silminger Sorcerer comes in to counter their Siege Rhino, this guy dies, you draw 2 cards, and then you get a 2/1 out of it. In fact, that's something we may want to keep in mind for if we do build a blue deck. We got Raksha Gravecrawler, which I played in a Triple Dragons draft recently. It did a lot of work for me, so when it exploits a creature, you get 2 zombie tokens. So you're losing 1 creature and getting 2 in its place. So that seems like another pretty decent exploit card. We've got a Macabre Waltz. Return up to 2 creature cards from your graveyard to your hand, then discard a card. Okay, so that cycles back your creatures to continue exploiting. We've got a Deadbridge Shaman. When it dies, each opponent discards a card. Yet another creature that's worth exploiting. We've got a Whisk Away. Put target attacking or blocking creature on top of its owner library for 3 mana. So putting the creature on top of their library is much better than returning it to hand, in that it slows them down a turn, which is definitely valuable. We've got another exploit gentleman here. Gurmag Drowner. When it exploits a creature, look at the top 4 cards of your library, put 1 in your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your graveyard. Being able to basically pick from your draws is a pretty powerful effect. Then we've got Sidisi's Faithful. When it exploits a creature, return her creature to its owner's hand. I feel like this particular pack was kind of designed for me to want to build exploit. Like, it's telling me that there should be an exploit deck in this box. But I felt that way about the one I opened earlier today as well. It had a lot of blue-red cards, especially ones that created Thopters from Magic Origins. Then we have Dutiful Attendant. When it dies, return another target creature from your graveyard to your hand. Once again, fitting into that exploit theme. Another Evolving Wilds. Then we have a Ravaging Blaze. X and 2 red does X damage to target creature. Spell Mastery. If there are 2 or more instant or sorcery cards in your graveyard, it also does X damage to that creature's controller. So that's putting together a burn deck that's going to kind of go a little bit further. So it's like looking for the end game, so to speak. Arc Lightning does 3 damage divided any way you choose among 1, 2, or 3 target creatures and or players for 2 and a red. That's a card that saw a lot of play back in its first printing in Urza Saga. And it may also pair well with something like Monastery Swiftspear, which has haste and prowess as a 1/2 for 1 red. Now this creature, I wonder if the Wizards team thinks that making that creature was a mistake, because a 1/2 for 1 red that has haste, already a powerful card. A 1/2 haste for 1 red that also has prowess makes it a very difficult card to deal with. We have Wild Slash, which is a burn spell. If you control a creature with power 4 or greater, damage can't be prevented this turn. Wild Slash does 2 damage to target creature or player. Another Lightning Javelin, which I was talking about liking because it has Scry. Mage Ring Bully, another great little red beater. It does attack every turn if able, but it's a 2/2 with prowess for 2. This is also the guy that used to beat up Jason in high school. We have Valley Dashers. It's another haster that attacks each turn if able for 2/2. And then we've got Mardu Scout, which is a dashing 3/1. Sarkon's Rage, which is a 5 mana burn spell, does 5 damage to our creature or player. If you control no dragons, it deals 2 damage to you. And then we have Twin Bolt, which deals 2 damage divided as you choose among 1 or 2 target creatures or players. Another Evolving Wilds. And now we're starting to get into another multicolored cluster. There's a couple of them in here, in fact. So we've got a Pine Walker, which is a 5/5 for 5 with Morph. When it's turned face up, whenever Pine Walker or another creature you control is turned face up, untap it, which seems like a solid play. Ice Feather Aven, which is a flying morph. For a colorless and a blue, you get a 2/2, or you can morph it up for a colorless, a green, and a blue. When it's turned face up, you may return another creature to its owner's hand. We have Secret Plans, which puts us on the morph plan. Face down creatures you control get +0/+1. Whenever a permanent you control is turned face up, draw a card. The only thing I dislike about it is morph is such an expensive mechanic. We have a Karasi Deceiver. Add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool. Spend this mana to only cast face down creature spells. Pay a mana cost to turn up a manifested creature, or to pay a morph cost. Claustrophobia, which is another one of those blue spells that locks down a creature. We have Frightened Being, which manifests 1 card from the top 2 of your library. Ambush Croteak. When it enters the battlefield, return another creature you control to its owner's hand for a 5/5 Trampler for 6. An Ethereal Ambush. Manifests the top 2 cards of your library. Untitled Chapter, which is a flyer with Megamorph, 3/1. Guardian Shieldbearer, which is a Megamorph. When it's turned face up, put a +1/+1 counter on another target creature you control. There's our next Evolving Wilds. We're up to a playset. Now we're getting into Warriors, which this is a deck I wanted to play in Standard. I actually have a bunch of Alicias who smile at death sitting in my room somewhere, because I really like the card. It starts out with Chief of the Edge and Chief of the Scale. Both of them are enablers for the Warrior archetype. One gives the warrior creatures you control +1/+0. The other one gives them +0/+1. Both coming in at white and a red mana cost, and one is a 3/2, the other is a 2/3. So these are similar to what's normally referred to as a Lord, the creatures that give creatures of a chosen type +1/+1. But they're split up into 2 cards, but also at a cheaper mana cost than we usually see for Lords. It comes also with a Mardu Woe Reaper. When it or another warrior enters the battlefield under your control, you may exile target creature card from a graveyard. If you do, gain a life. So a 2/1 for 1 that has the potential to get you a life. We've got another Bloodshed Rager. And we've got a Rush of Battle, which is creatures you control get +2/+1 until end of turn. Warriors you control also gain lifelink. So a good way to get some life back in the game as well. We've got an Aven Skirmisher. It's a flying 1/1. It also is a warrior. Harsh Sustenance, which does X damage to target creature or player, and you gain X life, or X is the number of creatures you control. A great way to finish out a game. Herald of Dromoka is a Vigilance creature, 2/2 for 2. Other warriors you control gain Vigilance. Hand of Solminger, which is another human warrior. It's a 2/1 Death Touch for 2. And Flatten, which is a 4-mana target creature gets -4/-4 until end of turn. So then I'm assuming this one's just land. And it is definitely just land. So you get a whole bunch of each basic, enough for you to build several decks. So we've got the 5 rares that are unique to the starter kit, and they're rare level cards that usually were powerful previously in the game. Mohammedijin used to be the biggest, baddest blue creature around. Nightmare used to be a finisher for black decks. Nightmare actually is very similar to Squealing Leeches, except that it has flying. And then we've got Shivan Dragon, the biggest, baddest, reddest dude around. Terra Stomper is an 8/8 for 6 that can't be countered and has Trample. And Aegis Angel gives another target permanent indestructible for as long as you control it. So white, blue, black, red, and green. Sarah Angel, who is kind of a staple 4/4 for 5 flying. Always been a powerful card, definitely playable. And then this is the pack that I feel like just kind of contains spells that go into your different decks. And so this pack, I believe, is exactly the same as the pack I had in the other one. Sorry, I need to get this down to the camera, my apologies. But so, like things like Silk Wrap, Divine Verdict, those are removal spells. We've got a couple generic creatures, another removal spell, enchantment removal, Feat of Resistance, which saves a creature, and so relatively uninteresting things here. So it feels like this particular pack, we get an ultimate price. Deadbridge Shaman again. Feels like it definitely wants me to build a warrior deck, a green-red aggro deck, and then a blue-black exploit deck. But looks like we got enough cards here to go ahead and make some interesting decks. I'm going to go ahead and start building. Hope you enjoyed watching me unbox this, seeing that there's definitely a great selection of cards coming out of the Deck Builder's Toolkit. I'll be a little bit lackluster. I feel like the Journey into Nyx pack was a little bit worthless, mostly because the set's rotating in 2 or 3 months here. And then, oh, what have we here? Looks like they provided us also the come into play tap, gain a life lands from Khan's block, just to have some additional mana fixing in here as well. That's kind of cool. None of the previous Deck Builder's Toolkits did that. And then we also get a Spider Silk Net. And then, of course, all the basics you could ever need. Alright, well, thanks for watching. Happy building with your Magic cards. If you liked the video, go ahead and like it. If not, go ahead and don't like it. Either way, thanks for watching and have a great day.